couple Plymouth station wagons.
Right.
Chrysler Corporation.
And Fords are still around, obviously, nowadays, and Chryslers. They're all still very successful.
Yes. Chrysler was bought out by Fiat.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that a foreign company?
Yeah, it's an Italian company.
Yeah.
But they still have the Chrysler Corporation offices in Detroit. They're hanging in there, and I know General Motors almost went down.
Yeah. I think I've read up on that before.
Well, they went bankrupt, and that's never good because I had a buddy of mine, a fraternity brother. They had General Motors dealerships and a ton of stock, General Motors stock. Well, as soon as you go bankrupt, all your stock in the company's worthless.
Yeah.
So all their stock was gone.
Yeah.
And then they closed their dealerships, so they were not very nice to a lot of their dealers. And then they borrowed, I think, $65 billion from the American government to reinvest into their aging companies, factories. And I don't think they've paid much of that back yet.
Yeah, probably not. That's a lot of money. So.
Yeah. But they're doing very well. I got a GM car out.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I see ads all over the place too for General Motors
on
my computer and all that, so you can tell they're still swinging.
They are.
Transitioning into like the civil rights movement, it's around this time frame a little bit later on to the 60s. What was the single most significant thing that stood out to you from the civil rights movement? Like whether it be a certain protest or maybe it's MLK's I Have a Dream speech.
Well, a lot of that just came out of the blue for us, especially up in Minnesota. I mean, there are no blacks up there.
Yeah. And
then all of a sudden you're down here and this James Meredith is trying to enter into the, excuse me, Mississippi, University of Minnesota, University of Mississippi, and they're beating on each other and the dogs and
a lot.
It was just shocking.
Yeah.
And the lynching and the bombing and those 4 little girls that were killed.
The Birmingham bombing down in Alabama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I mean, it was just overwhelming to us. What's going on down there?
Especially that far up north, like you said.
Yeah.
I mean, that's definitely a change of pace, especially from like 10 years earlier when it was more worried about the Cold War and things like that, and then all of a sudden here comes this new.
It just seems like something's all the time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it just keeps going. Something's got to go on.
But one thing about after that, you asked me about what kind of an effect the World War had on us, and then the Cold War. But one thing we didn't speak of was the Korean War.
Right.
The Korean War started right after all of that, and what's going on over there now?
Yeah.
And Korea borders North Korea borders China. So China was infiltrating all kinds of troops and ammo in there, and that started all over again.
Overwhelming.
Yeah, and so that was actually, a lot of ways had more effect on me than World War II, me personally, because kids in my class, 4th, 5th grader brothers were getting killed over there.
That's
I had a
crazy.
teacher, her fiance was killed, and I just ended up being closer to some of these things than the other wars. So anyway, I just thought I'd mention that.
Yeah, for sure. We talked about the Korean War a little bit too, and how China did have an impact on North Korea and totally shifted the war. And they still do. They still have. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep moving on with the civil rights movement.
Okay, sure.
Were there civil rights protests, riots, and fighting for rights around where you lived at the time?
No.
It was, like you said before, you commented on how it was just very. I mean, everything seemed like it was more down south. You talk about the bombing, University of Mississippi. So I kind of.
Selma, Alabama, the march.
Yeah.
And Martin Luther King, of course, he was from Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there wasn't as much going on around you?
No. Nothing to that. It was on TV.
Yeah.
And of course that, you were there. I mean, and I always liked history. And
right.
So, I mean, even when I was a kid, I paid attention to that stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, no, it didn't affect us because we were just geographically isolated.
For sure. I mean, it's not hard to tell. Minnesota's not very far down south, so
no,
I mean,
no.
Yeah. this is shifting more towards the 70s and part of the Cold War, actually, the space race. Describe the American energy and how we felt about when Apollo 11 landed on the moon. What was the media like at the time, like the news sources and?
Well, it was ecstatic, and it was like 24/7 that they would run the news and the movies, and we were all proud, and we were ecstatic as well. But you have to remember what led up to that.
Right.
Now, I was in high school when the Sputniks 1, Sputnik
yeah.
2, the Soviets, they got the big jump on us.
They were going on.
They put it out. They put things in orbit, and our the big Saturn rockets, and trying to get them off of I don't know if that's what they were then. They all collapsed. They all blew up on.
Yeah.
I mean, so we didn't have a whole lot to cheer about, and the United States was very honest about that. So they put it all out there for everybody to see. So when they finally did get their act. Okay, I won't shake the table.
No, you're good. You're good.
Are we running?
Yeah, we're running.
But anyway, that was just one of the reasons that we were all so excited, exhilarated, because of all the failures we had. And the Russians got ahead of us on this, and nobody knew what to expect. But the Americans came through. There are people today that don't believe we were up there.
Yeah, it's conspiracies. I've heard some of those conspiracies. Yeah.
But anyway, then we've been up there several times, and now we've sent the rover and over to Mars, and I'm as excited as I was about all of this happening, and I still am. I'm really kind of against manned satellites,
Like,
because these unmanned ones, just like the one that's going on Mars.
the Mars
right now,
with
I mean, with nobody there, but the pictures they take, and I mean, millions of them are fed back to the United States. So I've kind of gotten away from being a big proponent of manned spacecraft. It's dangerous. It's expensive.
It's very dangerous.
Yeah, it's very expensive because they have to make allowances for so many things that can go wrong. So anyway, that's that. But anyway, I'm very proud of that. What's going on up there at Mars?
And Mars, that's
Yeah.
very big development. I mean,
Yeah.
we could be the first country to get on Mars
If you
officially.
want to.
Yeah, exactly. We made a lot of developments, so
But you know what? If you look at the solar system, our little solar system,
yeah.
Mars, that's not very far
Oh,
away. It's like another moon. But
Yeah, that is.
that's being said. I don't mean to be negative about it,
right.
because it's a tremendous accomplishment.
Exactly, for
Yeah.
sure. I agree with that too.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Again, moving in the 70s era. Sorry. What did the Kent State massacre symbolize to you? Do you recall anything from?
Oh, sure. But what I've read about it is that they were National Guards people from Ohio.
Right.
And they're just kids.
Exactly.
And not much, but same age as those college kids. And the college kids can get pretty ferocious. I mean, they were screaming and yelling at these poor guys. And some books that I've read kind of compared that to the Boston Massacre, when those
The bombers?
No, the the shooters
Like
that shot those
with the
protesters in Boston.
yeah,
And it was kind of like that. They just panicked. The
guards.
the
Yeah.
guardsmen, and like I said, they were just college age kids themselves, but it had a disastrous effect.
Yeah, exactly. It left
Yeah.
a big effect,
They
and
sure did.
it's like the guards they have a job to do, and they don't like you said. It's a moment of panic, so
It was.
you understand in a way how they react, especially with the college kids. Who knows what college kids are saying and what they're doing? And
Yeah,
so
yeah. They were probably cussing them out, and you don't know if they have weapons, and they're there to protect.
hmm
So it just was one of those things, and I'm not putting it down, but it was just a terrible thing to happen.
exactly. I
Yeah.
agree with that as
Yeah.
well. I mean, never want to see anything like that in America.
No.
With Richard Nixon's Watergate scandal impeachment, how well or poor did America handle the president's impeachment? Like getting the vice president to step up and our government taking over from there. How do you
Well,
think
I'll
we did?
tell you what, that was a fiasco too. And we all, like I was talking about earlier, we supported the government.
Right.
And then as you find out, they're getting into these things, there were a lot of lies being told of the American people. And when they broke into that the Watergate Democratic offices, and then that's where they got caught, and it all came back to the White House.
Mm-hmm.
And his two big advisors, John Ehrlichman and Edelman or something, I can't think about them now, they're all dead. But anyway, those were some high up people
Right.
that were orchestrating this. And it all came from Nixon and his list of enemies. They did find out that he had all these conversations taped. And they wanted those tapes.
Right.
They subpoenaed those tapes, so he should have just taken them out and burned them.
Yes.
So now they went into the evidence on it. So anyway, they did give them the tapes, but that segment, there was like 28 minutes erased.
From the tapes?
Yeah.
Oh, that's not
Guilty. So I mean, it's just silly.
Yeah.
So anyway, then they had that John Dean. He's the one that started ratting them all out.
Yeah.
And since then, and this is a big effect that it's had on the United States, the Watergate era has changed everything.
Right.
Nobody trusts anybody,
Oh.
and maybe you shouldn't.
Yeah.
And Nixon was lying. I mean, it was a shame, and this was a revelation to us, and we're just so naive back then. I mean, it just, what, this can't happen. So at the beginning, I was in favor of the government, and how dare you people do these things? Well, as it turned out, I'm proud of those people.
Right.
They had the gall to stand up and the initiative. And then they had him. So that's when he resigned.
Mm-hmm.
And effective immediately, he resigned. And now, Ford was the guy he brought in.
Right. And he replaced as president, is what you're saying? Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know what the question was about Ford, but he tried.
Yeah. I mean, that's a tough situation to step
Yeah.
in, regardless of who you are.
Yeah. I remember LBJ.
Yeah.
He was he was always a Democrat, but he was the Democratic leader. And Ford, he played football for Michigan.
Really?
Yeah, he was a center, All-American.
Oh, wow, that's crazy.
And one time he made some kind of comment or something, and LBJ said, that boy played just a little bit too much football without his helmet on.
Oh, great. Yeah, that shows a lot about his presidency.
Yeah, you might want to edit that out, but I don't want to get silly.
That's good. That's all good. This is more recent American history,
Okay.
but what was the reaction to the falling of the Berlin Wall here in America?
Well, it wasn't that big of a shock because it was leading in that direction. And the Germans were looking to reunify because there's just no money. And the Soviet Union